Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the second webinar which we are trying to make for you. We are just wait maybe a few minutes because I'm not sure how many of us are logged in so they can watch it. So give us 1-2 minutes or 3 minutes maximum and we will start. So today will be just brief information why we are pushing to use step motors instead of AC motors with the reduction gearbox, and what are the benefits, why we suggest to use it, and as in Europe it is quite popular, so I hope we will be able to implement it also outside of EU because everybody are now concerned about the electricity, energy saving, and that kind of the information necessary to save our world. So 1-2 minutes and we will start. So as promised, we are starting with this short webinar about step motors, benefits compared to the usually used drive. Generally speaking, it's a device which converts some pulses to the discrete mechanical movements of the motor, so rotation can be very precisely controlled. And then, as you can see, the motors are just pure motors without any gearbox. You can see it directly here on this drive, which is running actually. So we are avoiding now the reduction gearbox, which has a lot of losses on this because there is a low efficiency. The sequence and the applied pulses, which are, rotating the motors, are of course getting back from the motor to the controller and back from the controller to the motor. So it's a good interface between those two devices. And then the speed of the motor is rotation. I mean, the speed rotation of the motor is directly related to the frequency of the input pulses, and the length of the rotation is directly related to the number of input pulses which are given. It can run with the whole range of the speed. I mean, those motors which we use are from 0 RPM up to 400 RPM with the same torque, which is very important. So it can give a smooth speed change without any losses on the lowering efficiency. The motor, step motor, is mounted inside the rotor casing, so that it means we do not need to have some extension outside of the casing, where usually smaller wheels with the AC drive need to have installed the drive, complete drive, I mean motor plus gearbox outside, because there's not enough space in this small corner. And the circuit of the controller are very simple, not so complicated like somebody sometimes use AC motors, but they need with variable speeds, so then they need to use the frequency converter. So this controller, as you see, is very simple, and that means give enough what we need for this kind of the application with some additional functionality which could be used. And it's, of course, then it must be much cheaper than the frequency converter. Some advantages of it. So this is quite silent control. No any noise is coming from the controller. No any noises from the drive itself. I mean motor plus reduction gearbox. As I mentioned earlier, we have a equal torque, and we have a 3 sizes of the motors depending on the wheel diameter. We can use the smallest one, 2 Newton meter, 4 Newton meter, and 8 Newton meter. And then you can see there are very short motors which could be installed inside the wheels. So again, saving the space on the length of your air handling units. And besides the saving the space, also it is more efficient, because the efficiency of those motors is comparable to IE4 EC motors, so it's the same high level. So there is a really very small power consumption. For example, this is 55 watts only, this is 110 watts only, and this is 260 watts only, so very small. Check the other one with the AC drive, because the AC motor must also drive the reduction gearbox, so that means it must be much higher power, like 750 watts or even 1.1 kilowatts for some big wheels. So we can use such a small motors. Thanks to it that we are, driving it directly to the wheel, so there's no gearbox. Pulley is attached directly to the motor shaft. And then something about the Modbus. About the controller. The controller could be controlled by the Modbus, so we have standard RJ12 plug, but also could be controlled, speed of the wheel, controlled via 0-10 volt signals, depending on what kind of the application do you have and what kind of the controller of the air handling unit is used. But also what is good, it could be used like a normal motor without any controller, without anything, just on-off signal and a contactor, of course. So we can, if it should works like on-off, we just need to make a jumper here, and then when you apply the power, it is starting to rotate. I can show you. So I just remove the power, so it will stop. So it is stopped now, and then you have a signal to run the wheels. So you just put on the contactor and it will start to rotate smoothly, and this is some period to when it is accelerating. So very easy, no need, and then of course it has also some protection inside, so you don't need to put some additional circuit breakers for that. Everything is here. And the controller, the connection between the controller and the motor is provided by us, because the motor is with standard short 300 millimeters cable with the plug. And we have on the other side with the controller, we are doing the same. So we have the cable already connected. And what you need just to connect the power supply, which is in this case single phase, 230 volts, 50, 60 hertz. So the power supply is very simple. You just take from, if you have just a three-phase installation only, you just take one phase and then zero and ground, and that's it, and it's done. And very easy installation because we have a very nice terminal, so very easy, you see, just to plug in. You just need the screw and put the wire inside, so it works perfectly. And then if you need to connect it, just slide in screwdriver and put the cable in. So it's just 1 minute and all wires are connected. If you would like to have this controller not inside our casing, the cable which we provide is 2 meter and 3 meter long. So you can just unscrew those 4 screws, take it out to your panel outside of the air handling units, I don't know, on the close to the inspection site or on the back of the air handling units or on the top. And then you can just unscrew those wires from the terminals, because we have a because the motor is 3-phase, 200 volts, and the frequency is from 0 to 400 hertz. So you can unscrew this, install this control box wherever you want, and then connect it again. Okay, let's go for the next. Of course, additional feature which we have in this controller is that it can monitor the belt, if the belt is broken or not. Why? How it is done? Because it is monitoring in the both sides the current which is used by the motor to rotate the wheel. If the current will drop down, so there is some application, of course, in the soft in the program that we will detect that if it is running without any friction, without any resistance, that means the belt is broken because the motor is only rotating, not wheel. And then it's giving the signal that the belt is broken. So you don't need to install additional induction contactors or something like this on the wheel, so no additional wiring, nothing. You will get just information from the controller. If you don't have any air handling units, sophisticated controller, it will just give you on this small display information with the error that the belt is broken. So if you have it outside, it is given information to it. And then if you have, of course, Modbus, then you will get this signal via Modbus, and then you can have it on your controller, and then you can see it on your PC or wherever you have it. So this is also very convenient. So this is just very, as I mentioned, it's very simple connection diagram. As you see at this presentation, we just have a few buttons and few terminals. So this is the test button just to start. If you push here, we start the wheel, and then it starts to rotate and show that some own self-test. Then we have some dip switch. By this dip switch, you can change some speed. If you don't have a variable speed, you can have a different, constant speed. But we usually set up the parameters into the controller that the condensation wheels will rotate with a 10 RPM, like we can see here. And now it's a current. Now we have a 10 RPM speed, and this display is showing speed and the current on each exchange. Then we have this, as I mentioned, also some LED which shows some faults. Then we have this display which is showing usually RPM and the current. Then here we have those Modbus plugs which are standard RJ12. Then of course here is the terminal, so you can connect additional signals and get out with some additional signals. And this terminal is for the power supply, so one phase, zero, and grounding. And these terminals on the right side are for motor drive. So it's a 3-phase coming out from the controller to drive these 3-phase motors. Just summary of those motors. We are using, as I mentioned earlier, 3 types of the motors depending on the wheel diameter: 2 Newton meter, 4 Newton meter, 8 Newton meters. Those motors are with the protection IP54. Of course, as I mentioned, silent operation. No any noises coming from the controller or from the gearbox. And the motors are 3-phase. So sometimes in the specification, if somebody asks, I need a 3-phase drive, you can say, yes, I have a 3-phase drive because the motors are 3-phase. In some cases, when they need, I need a single-phase drive, so you can say, yes, this is single-phase drive because the controller is, input is single-phase and output is 3-phase. So you can comply with all the requirements from the project requirement. Some comparison shot. I will not write a lot of differences in the words. I guess these pictures will show you the difference. As I mentioned in the beginning, on the left side we have the AC drive with a gearbox. So you have of course you need a space because it must be installed outside because there is no enough space inside the casing to install this bigger motor. You need to have a gearbox, and then of course these are the losses of this. And then if you would like to have this is just on-off operation, and if you need variable speed, then you need to buy frequency converter, which is not cheap. Then of course connect it together everything, and this is also additional cost. In ours on the right side you can see our solution. So the step motors is always inside, like on the picture, like on the model, and it is much shorter length of the wheels, so you can save the length of your air handling units, and then of course cost of it. So that was generally more or less what I wanted to tell you. The time is around 15 minutes, which was given for this presentation. Once again, short summary: very easy installation, very simple controller, much cheaper and then less expensive than the frequency drive. It is pre-wired by us, so you don't need to touch anything, just give the power supply and that's it. And you can use it like a normal AC drive with just on-off. You can use it with the 0-10 volt signal for the control the speed if you have some application where you need to control the speed. Or you can use a Modbus and then you will get some signals returned to your controller. So that's why we think it is much better than even with the EC drive solution. But as we will be having only this option, so this will be the standard in all our wheels, we have a high volume of the purchase. That means we have a good price for you with it. So generally, this is what I wanted to say about this. The wheel is very easy to on-off operation. I can very easily switch it off, and you see now just contactor went out and it stopped. You need to run it again, then you can close the contactor and start it to operate and rotate. Okay, so I don't know if anybody would like to ask something about this drive, so we will be waiting until somebody writes some questions, and in such a case I would try to reply. Okay, so if there will be any questions, you can write the question in this movie on the Facebook. We also will be sending via YouTube some information and a link to this presentation. So if anybody has some question and would like to ask, we are more than welcome to reply to your questions. Thank you very much for this and have a good day.